Hey, good notice you there. How's it going?
I think Jude. Go ahead, introduce the show, man. I'll let you.
It is week 10 of the NFL season. What show is this? Episode 13?
13.
14?
13.
Episode 13, yes. I don't know why. Of Old School, New School Football. Welcome to this week's edition. As always, the handsome Wil Masisak here with the regular-looking Jude Allume.
Normal looking, as opposed to the grotesque Wil Masisak. Grotesque is usually the word that comes to mind.
Grotesque, yeah. I guess I'm doing better this week.
Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Yeah.
As always, ready to discuss some Week 9 games before we get into previewing some Week 10 games. Week 9, some good games, a lot of unexpected finishes. It was upset central last week, I would say, wouldn't you?
It most certainly was. I mean, it's been a little bit of a weird year. I mean, there's always some unexpected upsets, but it does, over the course of time in the NFL, it does feel like there are just some weeks where a lot of underdogs win, and it's just like, what the hell happened?
I think this week it was like majority of the teams that were like the top of the top, like the teams you expect to go out and win, they just lost. And it just continued the trend where it was like, this week, this is the team we think is, the best in the league, and they just lost. Because for me, it was like, okay, this week I think the Rams are the team to beat, and they lost. It's like, I think I'm going to stay away from naming the top team because every time I do, that team just takes a loss. So
you're afraid
giving that a break.
You're afraid to jinx them. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I think also maybe just a theory, because I have just a hypothesis that it's nearing the point where bye weeks are starting to sort of interfere with the rhythm of the NFL. So you could be playing really well, you get your bye week, you come back, it's not so good. You could be playing well, you don't get your bye week, you get tired, it gets to you. I think there's just a little bit of that. This time of the year sometimes feels disjointed because of the stopping and starting that teams go through. So I don't know. I mean, I would say that's maybe a minor contributor, but mostly it's just, man, some of these, the bad teams are just capable in the NFL of having a day where they play well enough to beat somebody, especially if they play poorly, like the Buffalo-Jacksonville game.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I wasn't going to ask that. I was going to ask, what do you think was the biggest upset? And that was just the first game that popped into my mind there.
Yeah, I think that was the worst one. And it was, it was both that Jacksonville played okay, well enough. They didn't really make any mistakes. Their defense played really well. Josh Allen of the Jaguars had the game of his life with an interception, a fumble recovery, a sack, and a tackle for loss. It was a
little annoying watching. I guess I was watching Red Zone, and it was just like, oh, Josh Allen is sacking Josh Allen. I'm just like,
they got a lot of mileage out of this.
Do we really care? This is the first time that a player with the same name sacked a quarterback with the same name.
You better be careful though about saying discouraging things about NFL Red Zone, man. I'm just saying, things have a way of coming around to your employer. I just felt like that was, the Bills were totally disjointed. Josh Allen, the offensive line is having real problems the last couple of weeks protecting him. And he's just really ingrained to not want to take a sack. That's like a very big part of the thing that makes him great when he's great. But boy, that'll get you sometimes when you're trying to, just get rid of the ball to not take a sack and just blindly throwing it to the middle of the field. That was working for guys like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and, maybe 5 years ago, Ben Roethlisberger. But like when it doesn't work, it's spectacularly bad. So I don't know. I did I saw the passing chart for Trevor Lawrence in this game, and he basically didn't have any completions beyond like 2 yards past the line of scrimmage. Yeah. So it's not like their offense killed Buffalo's defense. They just played a keep away and just allowed the Bills to disintegrate, and that's how they managed to beat them. So that was a weird one. The Titans without Derrick Henry.
Yeah, big surprise.
anybody really thought that they were going to, I mean, maybe that they would win some games just because they're still a pretty solid team, but that they would go to Los Angeles and beat the Rams. That was kind of crazy. What'd you think of that game?
It was unbelievable just because, again, last week when the whole Derrick Henry thing went down, I kind of just said, stick a fork in them. Like, again, I've been very vocal about this. No non-QB matters more to their team than Derrick Henry to the Tennessee Titans. So I'm just thinking and focused, like, without that run game, it's like, what are they really going to do? And honestly, I won't say that I was wrong because yes, they got Adrian Peterson, and I love that he got to come back and play and score. But, I mean, it's not the Adrian Peterson that we grew up watching. No. Jeremy Nicole, which I thought would have a much bigger role and kind of really be the lead back, at least until AP got his legs. He didn't have much of a day either. And,
he's little, man. He's not a guy to, like, hand the ball up the middle.
Yeah, they don't want to give him the ball because they really value his worth in the passing game and his role as a third round back. But nonetheless, the three-headed monster that they have of, AP and Nicole and Donta Foreman, it just didn't really do much. And even though they wanted to still run the ball, they couldn't do it. What they really did, and I'll definitely give them credit for this because it's what good teams do, is they find a way to win, even though offensively they didn't have a great day. Defensively, they had a tremendous day. They pressured Matthew Stafford. They kept Cooper Kupp in check a little bit because he still had his catches, but it wasn't as overwhelming as it's been in weeks past. And they capitalized on mistakes. Big emphasis on that last one because uncharacteristically, the Rams turned over the ball twice. And one time they got great field position where they just kind of had to score. Another time they were able to score on the turnover. So that just spotted them 14 points right there. Besides that, it was one drive where it was like, okay, we were able to string together some plays and score and actually get up 21 to I forget how much they were up. But at that point, it was just a little bit too much for the Rams to overcome, especially with their defense playing so well. So it was like, I expected that offense to not be good, but I didn't expect the defense to step up that much and kind of carry the load for them and, basically carry them to a victory.
Well, Jeffrey Simmons is a problem, the interior pressure. I don't care if you're Tom Brady, no matter what quarterback, what offensive scheme, what are you doing? If you get immediate interior pressure on pretty much every play, there's just no offense in the world that can really overcome that. That's really, really hard to do. And they just never managed to. I mean, I love to sort of poke fun at Pro Football Focus. I not think much of Pro Football Focus, but I think the Rams center was either first or second rated by PFF coming into this game. And I was wondering how far down he was going to drop after his experience playing Jeffrey Simmons. But that to me was the key to the game. It's like the rest of Kevin Byard, to be, all-pro safety, often overlooked when people talk about best safeties in the league, who had the pick six. And Jeffrey Simmons, it's like, man, they don't even have very much else on defense, but those two guys are so good that the rest of the guys kind of complement that, and they played a really good game against the Rams.
I think you got to give a lot to the coaching on this one. Like, they must really love playing for Mike Vrabel because it's like everyone, even though it's a cast of misfits, but they're all just stepping up their play and making plays when the opportunity comes around to them and just, pitching in any way they can, even on special teams, like offensively. Again, I think they'll get it together. I was a little harsh on Ryan Tannehill last week. He's not going to lose you any games, though. So I think
he's a gamer.
Yeah, I think they'll be able to stick around with a lot of teams. But just the way the play of this defense is elevated is really just amazing for me watching. And then if Mike Vrabel can continue them playing like this, I think they're like the number one seed in the AFC right now.
Yeah, so, right now, yeah.
Sky's the limit, honestly, But if the pattern continues, that won't last for long, and they'll probably lose this week to wherever they play.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I said this last week about the Raiders, that I feel like it's easy enough with good coaching to like round up circle the wagons, and whenever you lose your best player, like you're still going to play well, but it's hard to sustain that over the course of a whole half a season. It's almost impossible for them to lose the division. But in terms of them being the number one seed, we will have to wait and see. Let's talk about an upset that probably should have happened 5 different ways that didn't happen. Are the Baltimore Ravens really great at finishing out games, or are they just super lucky and have the best kicker in the history of football? Like that's the question I pose to you.
It's like a combination of both. And it's just, they spoke on it too. What their issue is, it's like they come out and they're just so slow and lethargic and they can't get anything rolling. Then all of a sudden, hey, we're down 2 scores. Let's start playing for real now. And then boom, it's like something just snaps and everyone just picks it up. Lamar picks it up and all of a sudden they score 3-4 times unanswered. And, they find themselves back in the game or tying the game and in a position to win. I mean, it's cool because at the end of the day, more often than not, they've been able to win these games. But is that really the hallmark of a good team? Like,
is it sustainable? I would argue that winning close games, yes.
Winning close games, yes, but allowing the opponent to go up 2 and 3 scores on you and playing catch up the rest of the way, like you're not going to win a championship like that.
I mean, that was a perfect.
You'll find yourself in the playoffs for sure because, right now the AFC just isn't as strong as it has been in years past. But this isn't a team that I can confidently say, yeah, there's a great chance that they can win a Super Bowl. If they can put together 4 quarters of football like they do in the second half of games, then maybe yes. But I mean, just the first halves, it's like they're just so uninterested. It's like, why are we coming out like this? Like, why have we done this in consecutive weeks and not address this and fix this? Like, they need to find a way to get Lamar Jackson hot from the beginning of the game. So that way, instead of playing from 3-4 scores, 2 or 3 scores down, they're playing 2-3 scores up. And then, maybe get lethargic after that. I don't think so. You just keep the foot on the gas and just, really play 60 minutes of football and just make it happen. But they just haven't been able to do it so far this year.
I think there's 2 things about this. One is the players on the team, when you're so built around this one guy, they wait for him to they're like, okay, they're waiting for Lamar to make a play. They get excited and we'll roll down the field. But it sort of doesn't work like that in football. Everybody needs to come out hot, as you said, and make things happen rather than wait for your guy to do a thing. That's one thing. And the other thing is, I think coaching, when you feel like you have a player who can make plays at the end of the game and they're going to, they're going to give you a good chance to win at the end of the game, I think it makes you conservative. I see it all. You see it all the time around the league when they have these great quarterbacks that they start off the game just trying to play, basic football and know that we get in the later stages of the game, our guy is going to give us a chance to win. I don't like that strategy, but I mean, as a Steelers fan, for all of Mike Tomlin's 150 wins and beyond, that's the way they played for 15 years at least, where they're just they come out and think, okay, well, we have a good defense and we have a quarterback that can make the late game plays. And so we don't really care about what we look like in the early part of the game. But it's not a sustainable strategy, man, especially if not if a fan.
You definitely should care because it's like you're taking a risk. Let's gamble around and see how far down how far down in the trenches we can put ourselves before we bury ourselves out of the trenches. It's just it's stupid if you ask me. I think also what we need to look at is the team on the other side of the ball, where seemingly every week they find themselves in a late game position, and they're just unfortunate because they can never close out in these late game situations. The Kirk Cousins factor there.
No, I'm telling you, man, this was a perfect storm. You have a team that gets the bounces of the ball, has an amazing kicker, and finds ways to win at the end of the game, versus the team that just couldn't, if you serve them up a game on a silver platter, like when Anthony Barr intercepted the ball in overtime, and all you need is a first down or a field goal.
It was over at that point for sure. In my head,
but I was lost. I literally said to myself, "Oh, this is the Minnesota Vikings. They can figure out a way to lose this." And they did this almost the same thing against Cincinnati. I think they got a late turnover in overtime and had a chance to win very similarly. And it was like, oh yeah, I remember this team. And to me, it's simple. The Kirk Cousins factor is, this is a guy, he's so robotic how he plays football that he's not programmed to make a play that he didn't anticipate or to make, force something to try to happen to win a game. it's like if it falls to him, then he can look really good for long stretches of the game. But if it doesn't, man, it's embarrassing to actually. It's the worst kind of quarterback play. I hate watching guys who will just, like, oh, first read, second read, dump off, and he doesn't make a ton of mistakes, but that isn't winning football.
It's also crazy because you just look at the numbers and it's like he's up there with some of the better quarterbacks in the league. And it's just like, it's frustrating because you have a quarterback that has the skills, that is good enough, that makes plays to put your team in a winning position, but he just doesn't make the plays to actually win the game. And it's like, how can we really assess you? And how can we really see if we can win it all with you and make you our true franchise quarterback? Because it's like, you don't have that signature defining moment where it's like, yes, Kirk Cousins led these guys against this team and brought them back and won the game against this team. And this is just something that has been true for all of his career. Like, his record in primetime games is terrible. And there's just no wins, especially in this season when it's like, we need you to make that play. He just hasn't been able to do it. And it sucks because Mike Zimmer is a really good coach, and he is probably going to lose his job because his team just can't find a way to win a game. It's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I think Kirk Cousins is under 500 as the starting quarterback, which is crazy. I would pick him for my fantasy team if I had a fantasy team. I mean, it's like, he's the definition of like a good, solid, fantasy quarterback. Every week puts up a number for you, and is never going to be too bad. Not necessarily going to be great, but he looks fine on paper. That's why they don't play on paper. Who's worse, the Kansas City Chiefs or the Green Bay Packers without Aaron Rodgers? It was really hard to tell from watching that game.
Jordan, I feel like Aaron Rodgers might be happy a little bit because his value just skyrocketed last week.
His MVP case.
Wow. This is not at all the same Green Bay Packer team that we saw 2 weeks ago that we were saying, hey, not too many people are taking these guys seriously enough as a true contender. And I'll say they're still contenders because A-Rod's going to come back, obviously. But if for some reason A-Rod is out for an extended period of time, you can go ahead and just put them in the bottom 5 of teams. And that's no gross exaggeration. It's one of those.
It's crowded down there. It's crowded down there.
Yeah.
Though, the bottom 5.
Hey, man, throw him in there, because it's one of those situations where you don't have your quarterback. And then, the defense played good, but the defense was not good enough to stop Patrick Mahomes and carry them to a victory like we saw the Titans do. And Jordan Love, he got all the offseason reps. I know he hasn't really been getting the starter reps for weeks, the first 9 weeks of the season, but all the offseason, a lot of training camp, when it was still a question mark about what's happening with Aaron Rodgers. It was Jordan Love getting all this time, getting all this one-on-one with, the receivers and Devontae Adams. And it just looked like these were guys he was playing with for the first time. And
hey, you're a Jets fan. Would you trade Mike White for Jordan Love straight up right now?
No. I would not. I'm sorry. Because
that's what I mean. It's like you kind of. It's not to say that Mike White is going to be
position, and Mike White, probably given less time to familiarize himself with that first team offensive unit.
And a far worse team around him.
Far worse team at that. Yes.
Yeah.
Way better job. Looked way more poised.
I'm not going to say you can judge every quarterback. Offense. I'm not saying you can judge every quarterback based on what their first games look like. Mm-hmm. But I think, in a certain way, I think you really just have to judge. You see a guy in the NFL playing a game, like, whether it's against a good team or a bad team, you just get a sense of like, does this guy kind of have it or does he not have it? And I will be absolutely shocked if Jordan Love goes on and becomes a really like a above average starter in the NFL, just based on somebody else said this. I'm copying it, but it's like, you don't need that guy to come in and make big plays down the field. You just need him to hit the layups. It's like he's throwing a swing pass. He's throwing a little curl in out route.
And it's still not good.
No, that's you can't do that stuff.
Just there and easy for the taking, but it wasn't there for him at all. Like, I was seeing him trying to dump it off to running backs in the flat, and it was just like overthrown, underthrown, just not good. And I'm like, man, what is he that much under pressure, or is this? It could also be a mental thing where it's like I'm the heir incumbent, and this is my chance to show that I deserve, and you just put that pressure on yourself.
Too much, yeah. But it was
even if
that's the case, little things, man.
Even if that's the case, I'm sorry, man. You got to come out and perform better than that. Like, look at it too. You're playing against the Chiefs defense, which I guess is playing much better, but it's not. It's still not a formidable defense to shut you down like that.
One of the worst in the league. If the Packers lose Aaron Rodgers, because of their ongoing sort of dispute where it looks like he doesn't want to play there and whatever, are they drafting a quarterback in the first round next year? Like,
if you've got a pick or if you've got a trade that makes sense, they're absolutely, because they'll market it as, we just want as much competition as possible, blah, 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 blah. But if there's a quarterback that's there and they feel, hey, we got a chance with this guy and he did some great things in college, they're absolutely going to take him, especially if there's no A-Rod. Like, come on.
Yeah.
A-Rod is going to cash in on this one. Like, absolutely. Like, hey, I'm still ready to play. You guys need me to play. I kind of like it here. You kind of need me here now.
Right.
My price just went up.
But it's
yesterday's price is not today's price.
And what really makes it tough, though, is that now he's the villain. It's like he's not. It's not an easy sell to bring him somewhere. It's not his market is damaged for moving. But somebody will be desperate enough to take him for sure.
I hear that, but at the end of the day, this guy can win you a championship. So there's still
maybe he hasn't, it's not like he's really lit it up in the last 12 years, like
this guy can still win you a championship.
He can positively get you to playoffs, and he can positively win a game or two in the playoffs, but he's not necessarily like, he has a little bit of that like hero ball thing in him, which
he does, but you kind of need that as a quarterback. You kind of need the hubris to be like, hey, I'm a bad man, and that's what people call him. Aaron Rodgers, a bad man. Yeah, I'm going to go out there and win this game, and he has that. And sometimes it's proven true. I think really you can't put him not really winning a championship the last couple of years on him. Offensively, they failed to really give him a second receiver. And defensively, they just haven't been that good either. So
but it's this sort of game. It's this sort of it's an extension, not the same. It's an extension of the Kirk Cousins thing. It's like making the plays to win situational football. That's the thing that sometimes he blows through because of his ability, like because he's so good and can do so much. Usually, I've seen him take chances in a game situation where getting a couple first downs here wins you the game, but he is more interested in trying to make a play down the field because he thinks he can do it. Holds the ball, runs out of the pocket.
I don't see it like that. I see, because I think 2 years, was it 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago when they lose to San Francisco, the event in the NFC Championship, they just got their butts beat completely across the board in all phases of the game. You can't really put that on Rodgers because it got to the point where they tried to run things and he was, following the plays. And then once they were already down a ton of scores, then he's like, all right, I need to make something happen. And he's forcing the throws. But at that point, the game's already out of reach. And then last year against Tampa Bay, it's kind of the same thing again. They're getting their butts beat. And it's like,
they're playing a better team. I mean, I'm not suggesting, I'm not suggesting that
those bad throws, but it was like, we need something to happen, so I can't play conservative. So him playing hero ball in those situations where it's like, hey, it's make the play or go home. I can't fault him for that, because if he didn't do it, nobody else on that team was going to be able to do it. Nobody else was going to be like, put the ball in my hands and I'm going to win for you. Like, it just wasn't happening. You take away Devontae Adams, which is what both happened in both of those situations, then he doesn't trust any of the other receivers as much. They're not as good as Devontae Adams is, and it shows. No Devontae Adams, and Aaron Rodgers is kind of just not that good in the playoffs, at least, because 2 weeks ago without Devontae Adams, he wins the game. But in the playoffs against those teams, it's just a different story.
I mean, I just look at it this way: his record in close games and games where he has the ball and an opportunity to put together a game-winning drive at the end of the game is not very good. And it's especially not very good for a quarterback of his caliber. So that's all I'm saying. I don't know what the reasons are exactly, but I can't put it all on his defense or the lack of guys around him. He's come up small in some of those big moments, gotten a little better at it the last couple of years. but there's something to it. If it was a 1 or 2 year or 5 year thing, but now we're like talking about a 15-year thing. Anyway, too much time on that. Just quickly, is Patrick Mahomes officially in a slump?
Yes, for sure. I think they're trying to adjust things pretty much the whole season, his whole career, as a matter of fact. What they've never had a great defense ever in Kansas City. So what they've relied on is we'll just outscore everybody. And then this year it just hasn't happened. He already has more interceptions than he did all of last season. And he beat that mark before last week. I think since like week 7, he had as many turnovers in a season in this season than he did for all of last year in 7 games. The touchdowns he has a lot, but it's just not coming as easy and as frequent as they used to. The yards, the last couple of games, the last couple of weeks, they aren't there either, where it's like he's putting numbers that are really pedestrian and, just like 100 something, 200 something, low 200 in a game. Like for some quarterbacks getting 200 is like, all right, cool. But for Patrick Mahomes, we've come to expect that as like, maybe a first quarter, a first half kind of stat line. And it's just not there. And it's like, I think it kind of all just mixes in because they can't afford to turn the ball over anymore. So now it's kind of like we're seeing this new Kansas City offensive approach where let's maybe not take all these shots. Let's maybe play a little bit more conservative, try to hold on to the ball, sustain a drive. Maybe we'll settle for a field goal instead of going for it on 4th down. Yeah. And I don't like it.
It doesn't fit Patrick Mahomes. That's the problem.
It's not the Patrick Mahomes
it fits Kirk Cousins. It fits the guy who's not going to make the mistakes for you, who's willing to throw it underneath, who will be consistent, not great, but consistent. And that's the thing. It's like you take those big plays out of the equation. You have to have really consistent play, no penalties, consistent play, take what's there. And that's really hard for a guy with Patrick Mahomes' skill set and talent.
Yeah. I mean, we go back to what you were just saying about Aaron Rodgers. That's a guy who plays a lot of hero ball too, where it's like, yeah, I can take this more conservative throw or I can take this intermediate throw, but I've got Tyreek Hill streaking downfield. That's an easy decision. And you know what? It's worked so well for him and it just hasn't. You look at Tyreek Hill's numbers the last couple of weeks, it's not there either. And it's just like, man, what am I watching? Is this really the Kansas City Chiefs? Is this the number one offense in the league? I mean, definitely not the number one offense.
Not right now. No.
And there's the one silver lining is like, it seems like even though they don't have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running game is actually much better than it's been probably all season and even for the last couple of seasons. I don't know if this is like the formula they're going to stick to or if it's just going to be a week-to-week thing where it's like whatever it takes to win, that's what we're going to do. But this is definitely a slump for them. At least they're winning games, a little 2-game win streak right now. They got very fortunate, I think, because if Aaron Rodgers is playing in that game last week, that's a different outcome. That's a different offense. They might find themselves in a different position. But, they're winning games right now, so nobody's going to complain because at the end of the day, a W is a W, however you get it.
Right. That they all count, man. Speaking of which, and speaking of number one offenses in the league, you want to talk about Steelers Bears for a second. You were all fired up to come in and talk about it.
I just need to question mark the way you're setting this up because where's this number one offense coming in? It's
not the Steelers. I'm being sarcastic. That's 2 of the worst offenses you'll see in the league. Yeah. The Bears were 32nd in point scoring before Monday night. So, I mean, it's like the talk. All the talks about the penalties. I mean, this is free. I wanted to talk about it because I just needed to hear what your thoughts was. Was this a game that the Steelers were assisted in winning? That's just all I wanted to know. Well, the Steelers. Let's start with this way. A friend of mine texted me during the game, and he said, "When aliens come and ask what Steelers football was all about, please encapsulate this game and send it to them as the learning tool because." It was just like everything good and bad about Steelers football all wrapped up in one game. It's a game where they were basically blowing out this team. And unlike any team in the league, 14-0 lead is like to the Steelers, they start turtling. I mean, it's like they immediately are like, we're shutting down the offense. We got enough points, guys. No sense taking any more risks.
Keep the points up and, shut them down.
As far as the officiating, I think this crew is every year consistently bad, Tony Corrente's crew. They strike me as a crew, having officiated a lot, where they're looking for call. They're looking to make calls, as opposed to you're watching the game and you're trying to stop anything that's illegal that that enhanced the play or made it unfair. But they're just more like the stuff, whatever the points of emphasis are for the league, like this ridiculous taunting point of emphasis. They are, they're all over it. The low block. I mean, to me, the taunting. We talked about this a second ago. I think the way the league is calling it this year, 100%. I was completely unsurprised that he got called for taunting. Is it stupid? Yes.
A lot of people did not like that one. A lot of people.
No, but that takes away from the most hideous call was the low block call that brought back the touchdown. Because A, he didn't even hit him. And B, he wasn't really.
He was still in a tight end.
Yeah,
box.
And it was borderline whether he was in the box or not.
It was right there, right at the end, right where the tight end left is right where he went down to make that block, right. And that's not really why they make that call. They make that call for guys way outside, like receivers or linemen who find themselves out there on screen passes and stuff like that. It's not for right there off the line. It's not one of those calls you make when it's like, I can go either way on it.
Yeah, and to me, and Tony Corrente is the guy that made that call. That's his call. And from his point of view, it looked like the guy hit him fine, but you can't. I mean, to me, that's just like that is just an absolutely horrible call. It's not. It's just a call that you only make if it's a really obvious problem that really created an advantage for the other team, and like none of that stuff was true. So that one really bugged me. These taunting penalties, it's like, what's worse right now? The NFL's taunting penalties or college targeting? Like they're the worst two penalties that are being called. They're influencing game outcomes in a way that's way beyond what the actual intent is. So like I understand the college targeting rule, even though I don't like it. I get where they're after. This taunting
you want
thing
the safety of the athletes first, but it's like, some of these calls, it's like they're not trying to kill anybody. It's almost like whenever it's a big hit, they're just going to throw the flag automatically and take a look at it for targeting. Like if it's a big hit, it could be a big hit with the shoulder. They're still going to take a look at it. And I just hate it because it's like you almost don't want to go for that big shot. And it's like the ball's in the air. Your natural instinct as a defender is to make a play, disjar the ball from the guy who's trying to catch it. But it's like now you can't really do it because you might not be able to play in the game if you do it. So it's like it's frustrating. It's definitely frustrating. The taunting in the NFL, it's not as frustrating, but it's more just annoying because it's like some of these are some petty calls, where it's
I completely agree. And also, I mean, there's an element of it there's somebody earlier in the season talking about that you have this, it's both generational and a racial element to it. You have these mostly white, older guys who are trying to moralize what younger, frequently black players are doing in the game, celebrating. And it's like you get this sort of judgment thing involved to it that, I don't approve of this. I don't really understand how they can get away with feeling like that's fair.
And aspects to the NFL being the no fun league,
Yeah. I mean, you having played, even in the park, the idea of how different people celebrate things differently. Guys that will jaw at each other the whole game. Is that taunting? Like, for some guys, it would be like, no, there might be somebody who doesn't ordinarily act that way, but gets upset about something. And then he's like in another guy's face. That always feels more hazardous to me than guys who are like from the jump, are acting that way. But the NFL, man, I just, these are grown men. They're not going to have their feelings hurt by being taunted. And, I don't know, unless you're taunting in such a way that causes the other team to like jump off their bench and like punch you in the head. You probably didn't say anything bad.
We want to maintain the integrity of the game. It just feels like crap. Like, who really came up with this? What did they see that really had them say, you know what, we need to put some new rules in place so that we don't have guys acting like this anymore during the game? I can't think of any. Like, I've watched a lot of football. I've seen some things where I was like, that guy's kind of, a jerk, but nothing where it's like, man, they need to really make sure this never happens again.
Right. You're just not old enough. When you become that guy, listen, kids, you can't say those things. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's BS. Even as the old guy. Maybe especially as the old guy. But yeah, I feel like, the thing about officiating is it's generally bad, and it generally affects games in ways it shouldn't. And unless you're the New England Patriots, I think it kind of evens out over time. I mean, the fan of basically every team in the league can give you a list of times when imagine me, that Detroit Lions fan listening to the Bears complaining about officiating in this game. The Calvin Johnson drop. For the Steelers, all I really got to say is, we had a guy in a crucial game catch the ball and reach the ball over the end zone successfully, called an incompletion that basically ruined a season. So it's like everybody's got their laundry list of bad officiating mistakes. Was this a bad one? The low block that took away the touchdown? Yeah, most definitely. So
I think you add on, like, you just add on the iffiness of the taunting call. And for me, not too many people have said anything about it, but for me, there was definitely a late pass interference call downfield where it was going to be the end of the drive, but it extended the drive and led to another 3 points for the Steelers.
Well, a lot of hand fighting. I don't think that was third down, but more importantly, go back and watch it. He pulls his arm. They're hand fighting. I think that's, that's allowed. They both are hand fighting.
Yeah, it's one of those calls where it's like,
but just before the ball got there,
more often than not, when it's going both ways, they don't call it.
But just before it got there, he pulled the receiver's right arm down. That's the thing that got him the flag, because the flag wasn't coming out until that happened. So you can't take a guy's arm away right before the ball.
I've seen a lot worse go uncalled, man. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that part.
You just pair that with everything else happening in the game, and it's just like, the Bears
go back and count the number of times that the Bears guards and tackles left early. And they left before the snap and didn't get called. Probably. And by the way, if you're the Bears and your defensive team lines up offside even once, are you not standing down the line, Matt, maybe looking down the line going like, back up, what are you doing? And they got called at least 3 times. I think they turned down one.
They would do it on like the next play, but then every play after that, it's right back to it. But
couldn't believe. Well, I think they had even 2 back to back. One guy did it, and then the guy on the other side did it. The next guy did it.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking more of what's the guy's name? Not Akeem Hicks.
Goldman.
I think he had like 2. No, I think he had like
Quinn, Robert Quinn, yeah?
Quinn, yes. Robert Quinn. He was just like consistently like edging that line.
His body, not like an inch over. Like, what is going on, man?
And then he's just got this sad look on his face, like, what? You guys are crazy. How are you calling this on me? And you just see him over the line of scrimmage, and it's like, yeah, man, come on.
No, you might see a guy who's like the tip of his fingers or his helmet is a little bit past the ball. Like, they're never going to call that. But you line up where you're like
Quinn was lined up across in there consistently, man.
You're gonna call it. Anyway,
right, we got some good games in week 10 coming up here. Let's start with the Seahawks Packers, possibly 2 quarterbacks returning. Not guaranteed yet that we're gonna get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, but right now it does look like we will get both of them. Yeah, and this becomes a real good matchup, a way different matchup with and without them,
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers is, I think, the more iffy of the two, based on he has to pass some physical exam tests with his heart. And everybody that I've talked to, even in that age group that had COVID, has had a couple of weeks of like where they were not really feeling themselves. Even when they didn't have a lot of symptoms, they still had some trouble with that. So I don't think it's one thing if you're vaccinated and you have COVID, you probably have a really mild case. You may not have any kind of like big effects, but I guess I'd say there's at least a 10%, 20% chance he doesn't play, which is a lot.
Yeah, definitely. He has to go through the testing, be asymptomatic. And, the testing is not just like,
then
just
Russell Wilson
the test and pass it. It's like, they have to go through much more rigorous tests to see how good he is and make sure like, he's not going to put himself in danger by playing.
But Russell Wilson, is like he lives on a different planet, so he has different rules apply to him. I mean, like he lives in his own planet.
Yeah. This is a guy that wasn't supposed to be back until like week 13, and now it's week 10. And
for him, this is just like that practice routine he did before the game, where he was pretending
went through an entire game.
It's going to be exactly the same situation, so he won't even notice that his fingers, not healed 100%. But no, I guess I would say. You watched, Green Bay, I'm sure, saw the game the other night and thought, well, as soon as Aaron's back, we'll be super. But I think, you don't necessarily, there was some bad stuff in that game, that yes, your quarterback helps a lot. It would have been enough to win that game. But I'm not convinced that they just roll over Seattle, especially with Russell Wilson back and the sense of urgency on their sideline. I do think the Bears will win, but I think this might be like quite a dogfight to try to knock Seattle out, because their hopes are dwindling, so they really need something to happen for them here at this point in the season.
I mean, a lot of players, when they're coming back from COVID, they're still, even though they've been cleared to play, they're still not 100% and back to, the guy that they were before. I think to Zeke last year, Ezekiel Elliott, like he had COVID during the preseason, and then it looked like he kind of just slumped through the entire season after that. And, hopefully that's not the case with Rodgers, because, you don't want to see your top guys going through a slump like that. But at the same time, it's absolutely true. The Seahawks are kind of fighting for their playoff lives right now. Russell Wilson, he's been at home I'm imagining him just locked in a room. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. He's so frustrated that he can't play and he can't be there for the team. Go Hawks. And he's excited right now to just go out there and play and show like, hey, I'm very valuable to this team. And I'm the reason. I'm the little engine that could. This team goes where I take them, So
let Russ cook.
Let Russ cook. If Rodgers doesn't play, then absolutely I've got the Seahawks winning this. But if he does play, both guys play, it's definitely going to be a dogfight where Russ is going to do everything he can to win this game. I'm curious to see which version of Aaron Rodgers we're going to see if he does play. But it's going to be a good game. So, that's at the very least, we've got that to look forward to.
Don't make sure you don't sit Aaron Jones in fantasy, because I feel like they're going to hand that ball off and toss it to him quickly, and not try to put a lot of pressure on your quarterback coming back if there's any question about his health.
I'm just thinking back to the last game where, there were even like screen passes where Jordan Love couldn't complete the pass. And I'm just like, man, that's really tough.
Yeah, that's brutal. What do you got? What's next?
We got, it's not the greatest slate of games this week, but some good ones. We've got Chiefs Raiders, two teams where it's kind of like a question mark each week about what you're going to get. The Raiders with a tough loss.
Oh my God, the Raiders lost another player this week, man. Their 2020 draft is just looking
another
miserable.
First round pick. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just like, man, how can you miss on this many guys? It just kind of sucks for them. It's a very, very Raider-esque thing to happen. And then, they found ways to win. And then last week they found ways to lose. The Giants, a team that's been scrappy and in it with every team they faced. They found a way to close out a game, which is something that they haven't been able to do. Yes, they're in the game, but they don't close. And they closed last week in the clutch, getting a strip sack on Derek Carr and being able to prevent what would have been a game tying at the very least score. Like it was kind of a gut punch for the Raiders, yet here we are. They're still very much in the thick of things, still very much in position to win a division at 5-3. And you're going against the Chiefs. It's a divisional matchup. It's the Chiefs. Like usually in years past, I'm like, man, Chiefs. They always give the Raiders always give the Chiefs a hard time. And I don't know what to make of it, because yes, they always give the Chiefs a hard time, but you're a team that's just so up and down. And then the Chiefs themselves is a team that's just so up and down. I can't really. It could go a number of ways. I'm going to just stop talking about it because I can't give you anything of value now.
I think
as to what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're similar. They're in similar situations. Both quarterbacks are sort of slumping a little bit. Like Derek Carr sort of dropped off the high level of play that he started the season with, and
he was an
sort of
candidate,
and sort of coincidental to when his head coach left. It's like they won the game after that, but Carr, I think, benefited from that relationship, I'm sure. for some reason. And, I think it's hard to imagine this game won't be close just because both teams are sort of in a similar position where they are inconsistent, right? I'm not sure that do the Raiders have the defense that can force Kansas City to go little chunks down the field. I'm not sure they have that. So I'm going to give Kansas City.
You just got rid of your first round corner, and then they've been banged up in the secondary as well. I think maybe this is the best opportunity we have for the Chiefs to have them kind of revert back to that offense we've seen where they take those deep shots just because it's on paper, at least, it's kind of a soft matchup for them. But defensively,
they don't have anybody to stop Darren Waller, do they? I mean, they don't have a guy that they can just put out
Darren Waller.
Abram,
they'll probably line up Matthew on him a lot. I don't know I don't know if Matthew's going to stop Waller.
Yeah. No, I was thinking the other way. That Abram against Kelsey, right, is the other one. In neither situation do they really seem like they're going to stop those tight ends very much. But
even with Tyreek, I don't know that they have a guy that's going to be there step for step with him and kind of prevent those over the top throws. But that Raiders defense is sneaky good. That front seven is really good.
That's Crosby, but against Mahomes, you got to play so much contain. Like you just can't let him slip out the back door because he'll kill you generally. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive they are with the edge rushers. If they'll just go after him and not worry about contain, or if they will play more contain and force him to sit in a condensed pocket and make plays, which is not really his strength. So he'll do it, but it's not his strength.
It's not strength. Yeah, it's not what the fans want to see at the very least. Don't forget either Ngakoue. He's kind of like resurged in this Raiders defensive scheme too, and it's just a nice 1-2 combo between him and Crosby, and they're kind of driving that defense to success. Abrams he's a hard hitter. I'm not putting it past him that he can make some plays. I won't say he'll stop Kelsey, but he can definitely make some plays. He's probably the best defender in that secondary right now. It's just the cornerback matchups. I'm just really not seeing the Raiders being able to just contain Tyreek Hill and, the slew of other receivers that they'll try and get the ball to. Even Mecole Hardman, he could be in line for a big game because that's another speed guy. And I don't know that the Raiders have the speed guys to just keep up with the Chiefs at this point. But again, I can't put any bets on the Chiefs right now.
I think this game, I would just lay off of it because who knows what's going to happen.
I think it's going to end up being just an ugly game, really. And maybe none of them really look good. And it's kind of just like whoever has the ball last puts themselves in position to win the game. And maybe I give a small edge to the Chiefs just because the Raiders have way too many things going on where it's like it's virtually impossible to just focus on football. So I'd give a small edge to the Chiefs.
The excuses are built in. Let's put it that way. What do you think about the
set up for them to lose right now?
The Browns at the Patriots. Browns are an interesting team. They, when they can run the ball effectively, they can at least against a team that can't stop it at all. They can work their play action and passing game off of that a little bit and be successful with it. New England. They're what I think they're 5-4 or 4-4 at this point. It's not like they're bad. People are picking them though, like they're saying, watch out for New England. They might, catch Buffalo, and they seem to have back on the beam with Belichick. How do you see this game working out? I'd say these two teams.
It's a popular thing to say right now. If you watch those pregame shows, pretty much everyone's saying that last Sunday, like, this is my sneak team to make it into the playoffs. I don't think they're catching the Bills. I think, they're benefiting from kind of like a soft spot in their schedule where they're playing some teams where that are not really putting fear in anybody's hearts and taking advantage of it. And, you're supposed to, as a good team, you're supposed to win those games. And that's what they're doing. So I'm not going to say they're a bad team, but I'm not putting too much stock in them being able to get into the playoffs and make some noise. Maybe they can get a wild card. It's possible, but this will be a first round exit if they do. And now you have the Browns and so many interesting teams in the league this year. And unfortunately for the Browns, they're battling a little COVID outbreak. And what do they love to do? Pound the ball. Chubb finally looks like he's back to somewhat of 100% last week. Only 14 carries for like 150 yards. You know, you need that. You love that. And it's like you get rid of probably your best receiver. And it's just one of the things that was always so crazy to me, because when he's not playing with Odell, Baker just plays so much better. And it's almost like he's a completely different quarterback, and he's making those throws that he was missing to Odell down the field. And it's just like, I never understood it, because you literally can just watch him as a quarterback with Odell Beckham, and he can't make those downfield throws. And then last week he's playing with Donovan Peoples-Jones and hitting him in stride into the end zone. Is just like, why doesn't it work when you have a better guy out there? But that's neither here nor there. Point being, he's going to need to do that again this week, especially since it looks like he'll be without Demetric Felton and without the more obvious, more crucial, more important Nick Chubb. What they can
still a possibility if they test negative twice,
yeah.
but yeah, that's a tight time frame.
It's still like, no practice for the week right now, and it's just like you're still trying to get the other running backs up to par just in case they do have to take on a bigger load. But what I was saying is that, fortunately for them, they've got Dearness Johnson, who stepped in and did a great job a couple of weeks ago when Chubb and Hunt went down. And again, if Baker Mayfield can play like he did last week, then you know what? This is definitely a game where the Browns should win. And yet that's kind of the thing where it hurts the Browns, because the games that they should win, they just find a way to not win. And the Patriots, what I will say about them, they're just consistent. Mac Jones, he's not going to be on anyone's flashiest quarterback list. He's not going to get a ton of opportunities to throw the ball downfield. The Patriots are kind of the same team in that they want to run the ball first and then kind of establish everything off of the run. So I think that's definitely going to be their game plan again. They're going to play some great defense. Anytime a team is coached by Bill Belichick, there's a chance that they can win. They've proven that this season with, a couple wins where you didn't think they really had a chance, but they did, and they were able to win the games. That being said, I still think the Browns should win this game, which is maybe a reason I should be betting on the Patriots, but the Browns should win this game.
So, the factor you didn't talk about that concerns me is, you have your Myles Garrett against a quarterback not known for his mobility, which it doesn't mean necessarily he's going to have 3 sacks, but it means that they have to adjust their plan to try to protect and try to figure out how they're going to work their offense with the disruption that comes with that. So, I don't really at heart believe in the Cleveland Browns. I just feel like they're a matchup team. If they match up against a team that they match up well against, they can look unbeatable against that team. If they match up against a team that they don't match up well with, or they've never historically played well against, like that's the thing I said last week, Baker Mayfield is now 6-1, I think, against the Bengals. It's just like the team that for some reason, he has a easy time figuring out what they're doing, and they match up well against them. So in this situation, I don't think Mac Jones is necessarily like ready for superstardom, but I think he fits what they're asking him to do. And I think they'll come up with a plan. And I guess I'd say playing at home, I believe in them a little bit more than I believe in the Browns' ability to, I think Belichick might let you run the ball, but take away what you want to do in the passing game, or maybe they'll say, hey, you can run it against us, but you can't score enough by doing that. That's a valid strategy against a team like Cleveland, who's, I think, really, when Nick Chubb has got it going and the offensive line's making big holes for him, they can do a lot of damage between the 20s, but that doesn't necessarily translate to points.
In this game, I don't think you need a ton of points, because New England's not going to score a ton of points, minus that 50 burger they laid on the Jets a couple weeks ago. They've lived in like 20 points or less, Phil, for majority of the season. So
20 points or less, Bill. I like that.
Yeah,
the Steelers have a condominium there. Yeah,
they don't need a ton of points. So I think if Dearness Johnson is able to replicate the performance he had 3 weeks ago, and Baker Mayfield again playing without Odell Beckham, which is when he plays his best ball, if he's able to replicate his performance from last week, then this is definitely a game that they should come away with, especially given the fact that you've also said that adds to my argument that, you've got Myles Garrett on the other side going against Mac Jones, who isn't really, fleet of foot. So, it's shaping up for a game where it's kind of advantageous. But I do like factoring, going into Gillette and coming away with the win. That's not an easy task at all, especially for a team like the Browns that are still still trying to find what, their way is in the league right now.
Hey, a quick hit before we wrap it up. The Rams at the 49ers. 49ers lost a game last week they absolutely had to have for their division hopes. And the Rams, of course, lost to Tennessee. Where does this one end up? Another one I think it's really hard to pick. This is very similar to the Cleveland, New England, and the Raiders Chiefs games, where it's like, which version of which of these teams are you going to see? What do you think happens in that game?
I've seen more consistency from the Rams. I doubt that Matthew Stafford gives another team 2 early turnovers again, especially in back-to-back weeks. I doubt that they find themselves down 21-3 and have to fight their way back to make it a game. I don't see that happening, especially not against San Francisco. San Francisco, Jimmy G, at times he looks like he's a serviceable quarterback. At times he looks like, man, Trey Lance is going to take your job by the next week. The running game, it used to be really dynamic. And, for what it's worth, Elijah has been doing a great job filling in with all the injuries they've had, but it's not as, great as it's been before. They aren't really scoring the points, even though, he might have 100+ rushing yards. They haven't been running the ball in for touchdowns as much. And then the thing that's disappointed me the most about the 49ers is that defense doesn't look like what I expected them to look. Last year, 2 years ago, it was a championship defense, and they rode that championship defense to the Super Bowl. Last year, they had all those injuries, so this was kind of like a completely different team. This year, they get all those guys back from injury, and now it's like you just don't have that same defense you had from 2 years ago, even though it's still like a lot of the same guys that you had before. And it's just the consistency isn't there. They're just not really a good team. Like, this isn't a team that anyone right now, I think, is expecting to make a turnaround and make a push for the playoffs. I think it's teams heading in 2 different directions. So the Rams, again, have been consistent. They have the 2 losses. And you know what? Their losses haven't been against bad teams. It's been against teams where you can say, like, okay, I can see where,
right,
you made some mistakes and a good team capitalized and won. But the 49ers, they win not that often. They lose quite often. So I'm just seeing that the Rams are able to get back on track, beat up on the Niners a little bit, and go away with a victory on Monday night.
All I'll say is it's a primetime game for Aaron Donald, but it's also a primetime game for Matt Stafford. So take the under.
I think Matthew Stafford bucks the trend. I love him in this new offense. Him and McVay just seem to have a great connection with each other. Him and Cooper Kupp have a better connection with each other. Cooper Kupp is probably a underdog offensive player of the year candidate right now. So yeah. I think they definitely fix those things. And I think also, like, the taste of that loss from last week, just the way they lost, with it really being the offense putting them in a bad position, they're going to be hungry to kind of get that out of their minds and, get that taste out of their mouths.
Okay. Last word, Odell Beckham apparently narrowed down. He didn't get selected. It didn't get picked up on the waiver wire by anybody. So now he's got his choice of teams. He says he's narrowed it to the Chiefs, the Packers, and the Saints. Can you explain to me why the Saints are on this list? I just want to know.
The only reason the Saints are on this list is that kind of hometown nostalgia. I guess you want to play for that team you grew up rooting. He's a New Orleans guy, played for LSU. So, he kind of wants to stick around, and, he'll be around family and stuff too. So for a lot of guys, that does hold a lot of impact. You're not playing with Drew Brees, though, and you're not even going to be playing with Jameis Winston. You're going to be playing with Trevor Siemian.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point you pull the gun and say, let's see what Taysom Hill can give to us. But if Jameis was playing, I feel like that would be an intriguing move.
I agree with, yes.
Especially with Michael Thomas not saying he's not going to play for this season. Odell kind of just automatically steps into a position where he's the number one. The one where I thought would be a great fit, and he wouldn't have to be the number one, so maybe it kind of takes some of the unneeded pressure off of him, is go to Green Bay. You could play second fiddle to Devontae Adams. And, maybe it's not even a second fiddle. Maybe you can be a 1A and a 1B, and you just kind of terrorize all these other defenses, because it's like, okay, we're going to shut down Devontae Adams and make Odell prove like he can still play like the Odell of 3-4 seasons ago. And then if he does make it happen, now Green Bay is just that much scarier. And Aaron Rodgers finally gets that second weapon that he's been dying for the last couple seasons. The Chiefs, anytime you give, Patrick Mahomes a new weapon, obviously,
But I've been saying, I said before that when they were talking about trading him, I was like, the Chiefs are the obvious partner. They didn't really have the money to trade for him and fit him under the salary cap, but they can sign him to a vet minimum deal. He's probably into that. And there
that's probably the only reason why he went unclaimed. Like, the price tag was a little bit high, especially because he's probably getting paid off what he did with the Giants, not so much what he did. $7 million.
Teams would have had to pay him.
7.5.
Well, here's the thing. I fully expect by the time we get together next time, that we'll be talking about him with the Chiefs. But stranger things have happened. Jude,
I kind of need the Packers to make it happen, because honestly, I think he'll have the most impact on the Packers, and the Packers will benefit the most getting that weapon that can really be a game changer for them.
Yeah, I just can't see that organization being into bringing him in. That just they seem like one of those orgs that stay away from players like that.
You want to win some games, man. You go out there and do it. All right.
Fair enough. He's Jude Allume. I'm Wil Masisak. This is Old School, New School Football. Hey, hit the like button, subscribe, send a comment, give us a review. Appreciate you watching on Facebook and listening all over the interwebs and where you're
comment on those shirts.
What, I have like a bacon collar?
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
With a little guest appearance from Taco Meat.
It's supposed to look. There we go. I have to do this. If I do this, it's fun. Jude, on that note, see you next week on Old School, New School Football. Cheers.